So welcome back. In this particular video, we are going to talk about software analysis models. Previously, we were talking about some basic definitions and about software engineering, software systems in our introduction part. Then we looked into some of the software engineering models where we looked into your very basic software development life cycle. Then we talked about your waterfall model, after which we looked into your prototype model. We also had a discussion on your rapid application development model. Then we talked about your spiral model. We also had a discussion on your V model where we said that okay, let's verify and validate. And the last one was your fountain model. In between we had some iterative and incremental model as well. So all these things we have already covered under this particular section. After which we had a discussion on your BPM, BRMS and service oriented architecture. Recall your business process modeling video. And then we also talked about business rule management system and your service oriented architecture. We also talked about these things going hand in hand, and then we talked about the software requirements engineering where we looked into your requirements aspect. We talked about functional requirements, we talked about non-functional requirements, and today we are going to talk about software analysis models. We'll see some variants in this particular video or maybe in successive video if we need. So the question arises, what basically the software we need, why we need to go ahead with this software analysis. So your software analysis enables one to eliminate or reduce your ambiguous, incomplete and inconsistent statements from your software requirement specification. See, already we gave several efforts to come up with an unambiguous and your complete and consistent SRS. But yet we also said that it is not possible to come up with a complete software requirement specification. In that case, this software analysis helps us to eliminate the ambiguity or the incompleteness or the inconsistency from the software requirement specification. And this can be achieved by coming up with a two-dimensional diagram, and this two-dimensional diagram can be discussed with ease with your business users. That means we'll be representing these diagrams in front of my business users so that the discussion can be done with ease and my business users can also get a feel and idea about what exactly the things were mentioned in SRS, and if there is some ambiguity or inconsistency or incompleteness, then we can take a call on it. So your software analysis also provides the necessary and convenient conduit between your software SRS and your software design. So your software analysis and your design includes all sorts of activities which will help the transformation of your requirements to the implementation. Your requirement specification specify all the functional and the non-functional requirements or the expectations or the attributes which I'm expecting from the software. And these software specifications come in the shape of your human readable and your understandable documents. So these human readable and understandable documents have nothing to do with the computer, although these days we have the tool from which using which I can come up with the diagrams with the help of these requirements documents. So your software analysis and design is something which is an intermediate stage which helps human readable requirements to be transformed into your actual code. So, have you got a complete picture of the following specification? If I am saying the 5 BHK bungalow should have a door to the northeast corner of the ground floor drawing room which opens inside along the north wall and just coincides with the edge of the bay window of trapezoidal shape with the smaller parallel side protruding to the north of the north wall by 2.5 feet. There should be another bay window in the drawing room with a gap of 5 feet with the above mentioned bay window and whose west edge coincides with the northwest door that opens inside along the north wall, and the specification continues. See, after all these statements, what you are going to visualize? Nothing. Because by the time I have reached here, I have forgot, I am not in a position to recall the specifications which were listed here. So, the analysis of the above specification of a customer using your plan and elevation diagrams will offer much better clarity to both your customers and the builder as well. See, by all these statements, coming up with a building will be very tough. If I have a plan, I have the elevation. Recall what basically the elevation and plan is. It's from your engineering drawing classes, right? The front view and the top view were comprising with your plan and elevation. That gives you an idea that okay, how this particular thing is going to look like. That means for any particular object or a building, the front view and the top view is your plan and elevation. So all these statements aren't going to bring any impact till the time we come up with some diagrams. So for the software analysis, I have several models. What kind of models? I have data flow diagrams. I have use case analysis. I have use case activity diagrams. It is called as UCATs. And your state diagrams. So what we do is we have data flow diagrams which are your DFDs. Your data flow diagram is nothing but the graphical representation of data flow. Right, from the name itself you might have got some idea that data flow, that means graphical representation of flow of data. And what kind of flow? It would be either the incoming flow or the outgoing flow. And in addition to it, what I'll have is, I'll also talk about the stored data as well, because from there only there will be some flows and all. So your DFD does not mention anything about how this data flows through the system. It will talk about flows, but how? I'm not going to talk about that in case of your data flow diagrams. And that's what a major difference between your data flow diagram and flowchart is, right? So we have like DFD, then we have flowcharts. Here I'm not going to answer how the data is going to flow. Your flowchart basically depicts the flow of control in the program modules, and your data flow diagram depicts the flow of data in the system at various possible levels. So DFD will not be containing any of these your control statements or your branch statements, right? So all these things will not be there. And this data flow diagram can either be your logical or your physical. So your logical one will concentrate on the system process. In addition to that, the flow of data in the system will be added. Like for example, in your banking software system, how the data is moving between different entities will be the part of logical DFD. In case of physical DFD, it will be showing the data flow and in its actual implemented way in the system. So it's like more specific and more closer to the implementation part. So what do these data flow diagrams offer us? One thing is your diagrammatic view. Your diagrammatic view of the flow of data through the business operations. And these operations are the ones which are being automated. Right? Anything and everything is automated with the help of these software systems. Right? That's the basic purpose of using the software systems, to ease out our work that is done by automation. So now, why the flow of data is important for building a software package? The question is like, why the flow of data is important for building a software package? So in any software package, there will be several modules. And these modules will be interacting with each other. There will be some sort of interaction between these two, or it can be between these two, it can be between these two, right? Or any possible one here. And every interaction will be just because of either some sort of verification, validation, some sort of data storage, or some possible transaction. Some sort of software transaction, to be very specific. So for software transaction, some amount of data flow is going to take place. Even if in case of simple username and password validation, in case of let's say logging into your Amazon account, data flow takes place. This data is your username and password. Some amount of backend process takes place, which will be in the form of data username and password matching. And once again your data flow takes place, that would be in the form of returned output, which is a logged in screen. Right, so let's talk about system analysis using these data flow diagrams. And this will much more precisely answer to this particular question. Right, so let's see the software analysis done using your data flow diagrams. So your software package will be receiving some information or the data from the entities of the real world. For example, it receives a loan type detail from your loan management staff and the loan application details from bank customers and so on and so forth. Right, just like here in your Amazon example, we were getting some username and password. That was the very first basic step. Right. Then your software package receives some information or data from the data stores. For example, get loan type detail from the data store before they are modified. I need to get the types of details about the types of loans. So that would be fetched from data store. In that case, the data will be received from the data store instead of receiving from the real one entity, which was happening somewhere here. This time we are talking about receiving from the data stores. Now, once my software has received the data, it is going to process it now. So it processes that information or the data as per the steps of the business. So as per my business rules, and the business logic, I'm going to process it. For example, I'll validate a new loan type details. This will be underwrite an existing loan application details and any possible thing, right? So based on the business rules, for example, in this case, in the Amazon's case, the business rule says let's validate your username and password, then only let the user get the access of the orders placed by him or her. That is my business rule, that is my business logic, and that's how it works. So here also what we are trying to say is that after receiving, let's process it. So once I process it, I'm going to get some output. So your information or the data to the real world entities will be given as output. For example, I need to inform the loan management head of the pending approvals and bank customers about the status of their loan application. Right, so you have applied for a credit card. The system has received it. Now system needs to check the credit score. That means system is receiving data from somewhere else and it is doing some processes. Now whether my application is approved or not, that will be in a form of the outputs. And then the last one will be writing. So it writes the information or data onto the data store. For example, once a loan application is submitted, it writes the detail onto the data store for future processing. Or even I need to have those details so that I can send some our future promotional offers as well. So I'll be writing some details to the data stores. Or even after giving, let's say, a green signal for the loan application, then also I need to write it onto my database. So these are the basic purposes of my software package, for which I need to come up with the application in order to automate it. Before that, I need to come up with the diagrams as well. So receiving the information from the real world, receiving the information or the data from the data stores, processing that particular information, giving some output in the form of some information or data, and then finally storing something or writing something to the data stores. So that's all is the entire purpose of the software package, for which I'm going to come up with my data flow diagrams. Let me take one example before giving you the details about the various constituents of a data flow diagram. So what we have here is we have an example of a loan management software package. So on this end we have your loan management staff, I have your customers as well. So this particular data flow is like loan type detail, and this is T1, this is a process. DF stands for your data flow. So this is the process, which is your loan management software package, and on this side I have two data stores. So DS stands for data stores. So on this side I'm sending the loan type details, on this side I'm getting some acknowledgement. From the customer's perspective, I'm sending the loan application details, I'm getting some acknowledgement. And on this end, what is happening is this loan management software package is having this particular process, which is sending some details to the data stores of loan type detail and receiving some details from this end. And the same thing is done in this case to this particular data store, which is your loan application detail. So basically it would be like on this end I'm storing the details about all sorts of, let's say, home loan, or I have a car loan, or I have like educational loan, and I can have a personal loan. So all these things will be stored in my data store 1. Right, so this is all about my data store 1. On the other hand, for loan types, what I'm going to do is I'll have, let's say, loan application details. I'll have for the detail about customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. So this will be your data store 2. Alright, these things stored in data store 2. Don't get confused right now. We are going to go in much more detail about these data flow diagrams with the help of this same example in the coming slides. At this moment of time, based on this particular discussion about the software package and what all it does, I've added this in order to explain you the basic idea about your data flow diagram. Right, so this is a simple possible basic idea about your data flow diagram. Now let's talk about your system analysis and design, system analysis using your data flow diagram. So what we are supposed to do is, let's focus in the logical view of the system, not the physical. Right, that means what the system is to accomplish, not how. Right, so I'll only focus on your logical view. See, previously we were talking about two kinds of DFDs. Here we are going to talk about your logical view DFDs, right? So these are some of the tools for the logical view. I have your data flow diagrams, I have your data dictionary, I have your process specification, and I have your ERDs, right? Entity relationship diagram. Your ERD you might have done in your database course as well, right? Entire database management rely on your ER diagrams only. So this part you might have done in your database management course, your entity relationship diagram. So let's talk about various constituents of this data flow diagram. To start with, what we have is we have sources and sinks. Right, we have sources and sinks. And this sources and sinks can be your external entities, or simply if you are calling it as entity, then also I'm okay. Right, so these entities are your source or the destination, or you can call it as your sink of the information or the data, right? Whatever term suits you. So entities, these entities are represented by your triangles, right? This is nothing but your entity. So any class of people, an organization, or another system which exists outside the system you are studying. So it is nothing but it is forming the boundaries of the system. So the system and the external entities exchange the data in the form of your data flows. Right, so all these entities will be exchanging the data in the form of your data flows. And these data flows are represented by your arrows. We'll see that in the coming slides. Your entities must be named, and the titles refer to the names of individuals using a noun. So I need to name these entities. That can be done by using a noun, and the titles refer to names of individuals. For example, in this case, we are using loan management staff. On this side, we are using customers. Right, so let's now talk about the data flows. So these arrows are your data flows. Right, all these arrows. So what it does is, it gives you an idea about the movement of data, which is depicted by your pointed arrows. So the data movement is shown from the base of arrow as its source towards head of the arrow as destination. So this is your source and this is your destination. So data flows is like talking about data in motion. So it marks movement of data through the system, and we have a pipeline to carry this data, and this basically connects the processes, the external entities, and your data stores. So all the three items are connected using these data flows. And in this, we will be using the unidirectional arrows. So data flow will be unidirectional. Originate or end at a process or both. Name as specifically as possible so that it can reflect the composition of the data and can be a noun as well. Do not show control flow. That means your control flow is easy to identify. A signal with only one byte, for example, your on or off. Simple arrow. And if you can't name it, either it is control flow, does not exist, or you need to get more information about it. Now, so we talked about your source and sink, then we talked about data flow. Now let's talk about your process. So the activities and the action taken on the data is represented by this round edge rectangle, or in some of the literatures it is also represented by a circle. Right, in some of the literatures it is also represented by a circle. So activities and action taken on the data is represented by the processes. So you transform the incoming data flows into the outgoing data flow because processing is going on. Right. So your incoming data will be transformed into the outgoing data flow. This can be represented with the help of a bubble, which is your circle, or a rounded square or a rectangle. Right, square or a rectangle, because if suppose you are writing something, right, then what we can do is, but if suppose you are using it with the rounded rectangle, then be careful with the entity. Do not make it like this, right, or else you will get confused. Although in case of processes, the way we name it is like P, then this number, that is, let's say 1.1. Right, so in this case, this makes it different from your entity. Name it with a strong verb or object, or it can be a combination. For example, create exception report, validate input character, calculate discount. So all these things are like either a verb or the object. Object we haven't added here. Now next one is your data stores. So data store or the storage is represented with a rectangle with either one side open, or there is a possibility if you go ahead with this, some of the literatures. Right, so this is your data store, and this is also your data store. Right, the way I have represented here. So it's like with absence of both smaller sides, it can be your open sided triangle, or else rectangle, or else it can be your one side missing rectangle. So data store is like data at rest. This represents holding areas of collection of data. The processes add or retrieve data from these stores. So the processes which we saw here will be either adding or will be retrieving the data from these data stores. So I can name it using a noun, right? And it's advisable not to use a file. So only processes are connected to data stores. Now this point is something which is very crucial. That means I need to connect the processes only. So I cannot have a situation where my entity is in direct touch with data store. That is not at all possible. This thing is not at all possible. Show the net flow of data between data stores and processes. For instance, when access a DBMS, show only the result flow, not the request. So this was like all about the constituents. We had 4 constituents, right? We had 4 constituents, and what were those 4 constituents? One was the entities, then we had your process, then we had your data flow, and then we had your data stores or data storage. Both are same thing. So 4 constituents: entities, process, data flow, and data stores. Now let's talk about different types of data flow diagrams. So what we have is, we have a level 0 diagram, which is also called as your context diagram. So your level 0 is the highest abstraction level. So this is your highest abstraction level DFD. And it depicts the entire information system as one diagram, and this diagram conceals all the underlying details, and that's why this level 0 diagram is also called as your context level diagram. So it sets the basic context of the diagram. And then we have like level 1, level 2, level 3 up to level n. Right, so for, let's say I have a level 1 diagram. So your level 1 diagram is obtained by breaking your level 0 diagram into more specific level. So your level 1 depicts your basic modules in the system and the flow among various modules. So your level 1 DFD also mentions the basic processes and the source information. So now let's talk about level 2 diagram. So your level 2 diagram shows how data flow flows inside the modules mentioned in level 1. So your higher level DFDs can be transformed into more specific lower level DFDs, that too with deeper level of understanding rules. Unless your higher level DFDs are further transformed, so up to the extent the desired level of specification is achieved. Right, that means the ultimate aim is to reach to a particular level X. So it can be your 1, it can be your 2, or it can be your 3. And this particular level X is giving me the specification which I actually wanted. So your level X is taking me to the desired level which I was expecting. Means I started from level 0, DFD level 0, then move to 1, then move to 2, and then move to level X, and where I thought of taking a halt in order to claim that okay, this is what I was expecting and this is what I have achieved. Right, so this was all about your basic idea about data flow diagrams. In our next video, we are going to talk about level 0. We'll see some examples of level 0, then we looked into level 1, and then we'll look into your process description. We'll talk about data flow diagrams. We'll take some more examples and we'll move ahead further. So, see you.